April 6th, 2027. Mark that date on your calendar because if you're in the travel industry, that is the exact day the linked travel arrangement officially dies. Welcome to this masterclass explainer. Today, we're tearing down the legal mechanics of the UK package travel regulations, going from the foundational 2018 rules all the way to the massive regulatory wipeout headed our way with the 2026 amendments. I want to start by fast-forwarding right to that end result. By April 2027, the rules of travel completely change. LTAs are wiped from the statute books entirely. And on top of that, if a third-party hotel fails to perform or cancels a room, they are legally mandated to refund the tour operator within exactly 14 days. No excuses, no, we're processing it. 14 days. So it all boils down to one massive question. Who actually pays when the trip falls apart? That's the ultimate stakes of the legislation we're examining today. The 2026 amendments are fundamentally rewriting the liability landscape, shifting huge financial burdens, and closing loopholes that the industry has relied on for years. To figure out how we survive this shift, here is our roadmap. We'll kick things off with this new 2027 travel reality, then properly define what a package actually is. After that, we'll dive into the strict information and liability rules, insolvency protection mandates, the outright end of LTAs, and finally, those crucial new rights to refunds. All right, let's jump straight into the deep end with the 2027 travel reality and this massive shift in liability. Okay, picture this. Step 1. An overseas hotel totally drops the ball and cancels a block of rooms. Under the newly inserted Regulation 29A, a strict, non-negotiable 14-day statutory clock starts ticking right that second. Within those 14 days, that third party must send a refund to the organizer or the retailer. It's a radical injection of speed and accountability right into the very heart of the travel supply chain. But to really wrap our heads around why this 14-day mandate is such a tectonic shift, we have to rewind to the 2018 foundation and see how travel bookings were originally categorized. Back in 2018, a package was pretty straightforward. If someone clicks buy on a flight and a hotel bundled together for one inclusive price, boom, that's a package. And it triggers maximum consumer protection. It makes one single entity, the organizer, completely liable for the entire trip. If the transfer doesn't show up or the hotel is overbooked, it doesn't matter whose fault it is. The organizer takes the hit. Then you had the linked travel arrangement, or the LTA. Basically, it was the travel industry's favorite regulatory loophole. You still have two travel services purchased for the same trip, but they result in separate contracts with individual providers. So if a trader facilitates these separate payments within 24 hours of each other, it was an LTA. Functionally, this drastically reduced the trader's liability. When you stack them up side by side, it's night and day. The organizer of a package, they are fully on the hook. They have to remedy any lack of conformity and even repatriate travelers if things go sideways. Meanwhile, a trader facilitating an LTA under the 2018 rules only had to provide insolvency protection for the specific cash they held. If the hotel burns down, the LTA trader just points the finger at the hotel. The liability was completely fractured. Now let's look at the information and liability rules that actually dictate this incredibly heavy burden placed on organizers. Because before a single penny even changes hands, organizers have to provide an exhaustively long list of details. We're talking the total price with all taxes included, the exact passport and visa requirements, the minimum number of people required for the tour to even happen. They even have to spell out the suitability for persons with reduced mobility and standard termination fees. The law demands granular specificity to ensure absolute transparency. But here is a number you absolutely need to commit to memory: 8%. Sure, organizers can raise prices post-booking if fuel costs or taxes spike, but if that proposed increase exceeds 8% of the total package price, the traveler instantly gains the statutory right to just walk away. They can terminate the contract entirely, pay zero termination fees, and get a full refund within 14 days. We also have to talk about a pretty significant technical shift that happened right after the 2018 rules rolled out. Yep, Brexit. In December 2018, an amendment actively scrubbed references to the European Economic Area from the text. This legally isolated the UK's consumer protection framework, meaning these strict insolvency and liability standards now apply specifically to traders established in or directing their activities straight to the United Kingdom. Next up, we need to talk about the absolute worst-case scenario: insolvency. What happens to traveler funds if the company actually goes under? The law demands that traveler funds are safeguarded, and it gives organizers exactly 3 ways to do it. First, bonding, which usually requires a bond covering a minimum of 25% of your expected 12-month payments. Second, Insurance, where you get a rock-solid policy with an authorized UK insurer. And third, monies in trust, meaning all traveler payments are held by an independent trustee right in the UK until the contract is completely fulfilled. And honestly, regardless of whether you pick bonding, insurance, or a trust account, the outcome has to be identical. If the company goes bust, the protection must refund all payments for unperformed services, pay for accommodation prior to repatriation, and ultimately fly the traveler home if flights were included. All of this has to happen without any undue delay and completely free of charge to the traveler. Which brings us to the real bombshell of today's explainer: the complete end of LTAs under the 2026 regulatory wipeout. The lawmakers didn't just tweak the rules here, they took a giant red pen to them. The 2026 text brutally and simply states Omit Regulation 26. It also dumps Schedules 6 through 10 entirely. Think about the statutory implications here. By deleting Regulation 26, that nice, light liability shield for traders facilitating linked arrangements, it's completely destroyed, gone. So all those cleverly separated bookings that used to slip through the cracks, not anymore. If a single trader facilitates the separate selection and separate payment of travel services during a single visit, it doesn't matter if it results in separate contracts. Under the newly amended rules, it is legally a package. The trader is now an organizer, and they are burdened with full statutory liability for the entire trip. Since everyone is suddenly an organizer now, let's talk about the new rights to refunds, specifically that 14-day mandate. Because the liability now rests squarely on the shoulders of organizers, the 2026 amendment threw in a crucial lifeline so these businesses aren't bankrupted by their own suppliers. Back to our timeline. Day 0, a foreign hotel or tour guide cancels a service. Days 1 through 13 are for processing. And by day 14, that third party legally must send the cash back up the chain to the organizer. It has to happen so the organizer has the actual liquidity to meet their own 14-day refund obligations to the traveler. We do need to separate this immediate right to a refund from the broader right of redress, though. Regulation 29A is strictly about getting your cash back within 14 days for a canceled service. But new Regulation 29B preserves your civil right to claim broader damages. Say a third-party screw-up forces you to pay out massive compensation to a client. You still have sharp legal avenues to recoup those losses later. So, as we wrap up this masterclass explainer, I'll leave you with a question you really need to sit down and ask yourself. Are your business operations, your booking flows, and your supplier contracts actually ready for this? The LTA loophole is closing for good, and that 14-day countdown goes live on April 6, 2027. When that clock starts ticking, are you going to be the one left holding the bill?